The bright side of addiction is recovery. Now, if you're in recovery or know or love someone who is, or you simply want to know more about what recovery is, how the process works, how you find recovery, or maybe you're a bit concerned about someone you know or love who harmfully is using alcohol or any other drug, this is the podcast for you. As we carry the message of hope and the promise of recovery. And a reminder that you can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. Recent episodes have featured an historic interview with Betty Ford that I did 41 years ago. Actor John Larroquette joined us at one point, astronaut Buzz Aldrin, musician Bonnie Raitt, authors Brene Brown, Anne Lamott, J.A. Jance, former NFL player Ryan Leaf, and Thomas Hollywood Henderson, plus everyday people in long-term recovery, sharing their story, their insight, and their path. Welcome to Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. In this edition, we're going to share a conversation that I had recently with two people in long-term recovery who are really making a difference in the lives of those who are addicted and those in need of help. We're going to meet Gus Ramos and Joe Nevedansky from Gentle Heart Recovery. Here's two quick clips from today's podcast, my conversation with Gus and Joe. First, here is Gus.
I was 19 when I made my final decision that I wanted to change my life. I'm now 45 years old. There's a lot more to learn. I'm very happy that I have learned and educated myself to this point. I look forward to growing and continue helping other people grow as well.
And now a quick clip from my conversation with Joe.
You know, I started drinking as a 13-year-old Jewish man. There were bar mitzvahs. So at each bar mitzvah, I was the class bartender. Not only did I drink my own shots, I drank, everyone in the class. In high school, was also, smoking pot quite often. It took me another, I would say, 15 years to the time I was 30. Developed a severe heroin addiction. I was reluctant to recover, and the way I see it today, my life today, is a beautiful one.
Our visit with these two men in long-term recovery, healing hearts from the heart of New York City. And it is coming right up. I'm Neil Scott, host of Recovery Coast to Coast, and I want to begin by expressing again my gratitude, my sincere thanks. And I just can't say it enough. I so appreciate you listening to this podcast. I realize your time's important. There's a lot of choices that you have. There are many podcasts certainly you could be listening to, and a lot of them have to do with recovery. Thank you for listening to ours. Our website, recoverycoasttocoast.org. And following 15 years of nightly broadcasting on iHeartRadio in Seattle, our podcast features interviews with everyday people in recovery, as well as clinicians, authors, and recovering celebrities who offer the promise of hope and the reality of recovery, plus well-vetted resources for individuals, families, and friends. We invite you to enjoy it and to share it with your friends as well. Recovery is an American way of life. A reminder, our email address is, and we would love to hear from you, recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. Recovery Coast to Coast is supported by Sundown M Ranch, one of America's oldest and least expensive and this is the most important part, most successful treatment programs. When it comes to treatment centers, there are a lot of choices, and it's terribly important that you choose the best one for the right reasons. There's a lot of flashy programs around with expensive ads, making treatment sound like a vacation. Well, a vacation it is not. What it is a life-affirming and in many cases a life-saving course of treatment to address addiction to alcohol and other drugs as well. Can Sundown M Ranch cure your addiction? Absolutely not. No treatment program can cure addiction because it's a chronic, progressive disease, but it can be successfully treated, and recovery can be successfully managed. It's just like with other diseases like cancer and diabetes, heart disease. Once inpatient treatment is successfully treated, at Sundown, the patient's given a set of recovery tools to ensure long-term recovery. Treatment at Sundown, abstinence-based, 12-step centered. They provide detox, education, individual therapy, group therapy, and a comprehensive family program, along with continuing care planning and recovery enhancement. By the way, a great number of their staff have been right where you are. They understand what the patient is going through and can help navigate the process, including admission and insurance coverage. They're real pros at that. And they do it with the utmost empathy, compassion, and confidentiality. They've been successfully treating patients and families for well over 55 years. Sundown, which is a not for profit organization, is located on beautiful 30 acres at the mouth of the Yakima River Canyon. I could not be happier, I could not be prouder to have them as a supporter and sponsor of Recovery Coast to Coast. Sundown M Ranch, where recovery begins, sundown.org. All right, it's that time. It is coffee time. And as I pour myself a cup of coffee, I invite you to join me as we share a conversation that I had with a couple of men who are paving the road to recovery in New York City with an organization with a wonderful name, Gentle Heart Recovery. Now, these conversations were recorded at the 44th Annual National Leadership Conference of NAATP, the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers. NAATP recently held their 44th Annual Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C., and I was privileged to broadcast Recovery Coast to Coast from this historic conference. And now here is that conversation. Visiting with Gus Ramos, he's the Director of Marketing, Development, and Outreach at ELEV, and that's, of course, in New York City. Tell me a little bit about your recovery story, if you would, Gus.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. First of all, I'm from New York, grew up in Brooklyn, and I got to say I've been clean since I was about the age of 19, since I had my last arrest for running the streets, not only from selling, drugs, but, also getting caught up with cocaine really bad. I was a teenager. When I was 19, I got my arrest. That was it for me. That was my wake up call.
You get a nudge from the judge?
Yeah. And I had several arrests before that, right? But that was one that was a wake up call for me. I wasn't looking to do any time or anything like that, so I decided to change my life. At about 21, I ran across a friend of mine who was a counselor and also a pastor, and then he introduced me to this program out located in Manhattan, where I became an outreach worker, and I was doing outreach with them, and that's where my career actually began. And I took that very serious, and I started to educate myself on exactly what my job function was, and it was to save lives. Since then, I've educated myself on outreach, on substance abuse and alcohol. I've also educated myself on marketing, strategic relationships, and I'm now here a good 27 years later, and I've worked with several facilities throughout New York. And right now, I've got to say, I work for one of the greatest facilities that I can say has been developed in New York, starting with Elevate Centers. Elevate Centers was our first facility that we opened up with 75 beds, all male facility.
In Brooklyn?
In Manhattan.
In Manhattan?
Uptown Manhattan.
Okay.
Harlem, 135th Street.
Oh, my goodness.
We're saving a lot of lives over there.
Wow.
And then from there, we were able to open up another facility in Brooklyn called Urban Recovery. Where that bed, we have 75 census over there as well. And we're also doing great with our census, which means that there is a big need in the community. From there, we went on to continue to open up another facility called Surf Point Recovery, and that's located in Brooklyn, Coney Island.
I like the name of Surf Point.
Yeah, Surf Point is right by the beach, which makes a lot of sense. It's right on Surf Avenue of Brooklyn, New York, in Coney Island. It's we have 150 beds. We're only using up to 40 bed census there now because we just opened up in December, and we're doing great there. The community is very happy that we're there. Every community that we've come into has been very supportive in what we are doing, as we all know that recovery and substance abuse is a nationwide, addiction problem for our communities. I gotta say, we've been doing really well, and in Niagara, Buffalo, we have another facility called Niagara Recovery, located in New Vein of Buffalo. That's also about 150 bed census, but we're only at 40 census now because we also just opened up. And the community has also been supporting us with open arms. They're happy that programs like ours, and we're really open to having treatment services that other facilities may not have and functions that other facilities do not have so that we can have a successful rate of the treatment services that we provide. And in all that, we also have an alumni program that we do follow our patients with. We have a good maybe over 100 patients that have come through our facility and maintained their sobriety.
They become a part of your family.
They are a part of our family, and they continue to also help other individuals throughout the community. And we look forward to really going national and working with other facilities, other recovery programs. It's really great to be here in this conference today. Thank you for having us. We hope that if anyone is in need of any treatment in New York, please feel free to call Gentle Heart Recovery Centers. I'll give you that number: 646 655 0031, and that is our main line. Please do not hesitate to give us a call.
Oh, Gus, you do outreach. To the listener out there, what does that mean? What do you do when you do outreach?
When you're outreach, you really have to have the heart to be able to understand what outreach really means and the function of that. You're really out in the community, going to referral sources and other clinics that are in the community to help the people who are suffering from substance abuse and alcohol. You're also going into the community, parks and any locations like hospitals. And what we do is that we just make the community aware that our program exists and that the help that they're looking for their loved ones, their friends, or anyone that may needing help, that we're there and they can give us a call. And the outreach coordinator at that time, we do an initial screening with the patients to ensure that our facility is safe and appropriate and that the insurance is also in network for us to help them. If that is not the case and they're not able to meet the criteria, we do make sure that we give them a referral to our next level of care.
So you don't leave the guy hanging or the woman hanging.
Right, we do not leave them hanging. We make sure that we do make a warm referral that someone else can, either accept their insurance and accept their criteria.
I like that, a warm referral.
Absolutely.
That's nice, Gus.
Thank you.
Wow. And you've been in recovery 7 years?
Oh man, much longer than that. I was 19 when I made my final decision that I wanted to change my life.
Yeah.
And I'm now 45 years old.
Holy mackerel. What have you learned in that time?
Man, there's a lot more to learn, but I'm very happy that I have learned and educated myself to this point, and I look forward to growing and continue helping other people grow as well.
Outstanding. Getting to you, Joe, and Joe Nevinansky, tell me a little bit about your program. You've been in program almost 16 years now, 15 plus. Go back to the very beginning again, if you would, in terms
Sure.
of what happened and what it's like now.
Sure. What happened?
Especially the part about the bartender, the 13-year-old Jewish bartender.
Wow. Okay, that's my claim to fame, the 13-year-old Jewish bartender. I started drinking as a 13-year-old Jewish man. There were bar mitzvahs. So at each bar mitzvah, I was the class bartender. Not only did I drink my own shots, I drank, everyone in the class.
One for you, one for me.
Exactly. Yes. In high school, I basically was also, smoking pot quite often.
The addiction was escalating.
It was escalating. I mean, put it this way: I could have stopped at 17 and been done with it, and I would have been okay. Meaning I did enough research and development at that point. It took me another, I would say, 15 years to the time I was 30. Developed a severe heroin addiction, in and out of detoxes and other treatment centers, and I finally.
You were one of the reluctant to recover.
I was reluctant to recover, and the way I see it today, my life today is a beautiful one. It's a life filled with life.
What was different the last time?
What was different the last time? I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. My world had gotten really small. People didn't want me around, and I can't say the last time. I mean, I just finally.
You were ready.
I had some willingness and also humility and being humble that I may not know everything, because what I knew was getting me, twisted. So let me listen to someone else who has had this kind of experience before me, that has done this and done this quite successfully, and that I didn't have all the answers.
So Joe's program wasn't working.
No, no, to say the least.
I love the name of your umbrella organization, Gentle Heart Recovery.
Yes.
Can you give me the history on that?
It was a lot of just thinking about what name personifies our organization. A big buzzword today is meeting, clients where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So what we embody from leadership on down is this concept of being gentle with patients, and really understanding and really listening to their experiences, and also being gentle with ourselves. A lot of times you get caught up in life. I get caught up in life, and it's rush, rush, rush. I mean, I live in New York.
you become a human doing
A
rather
human
than a
doing,
human being.
that's my line. Hey, you took my line, a line out of my own book.
I wrote it 40 years ago, but you're welcome to use it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Just kidding.
It's the concept of every staff member and every client we interact with is to have a gentle heart concept, and a gentle heart imparting and imbuing gentle heart, a concept of being gentle with the patients that we treat.
Certainly, Joe, a lot of people who come into treatment do not have a gentle heart. They come in with anger.
Correct. Yes.
All sorts of negative emotions. How do you turn that into a gentle heart?
Right. So it's just by leading by example and showing individuals that, hey, you know what? You may have been in treatment countless times. This is your first treatment episode. And we see, by having that attitude, right? By having different programming, by having a holistic approach as well. So I had the opportunity to bring in a yoga instructor. We bring in countless things because we realize that, one patient to the other, everyone's recovery looks different.
Yeah.
Everyone's recovery looks different, and what works for one person may not work for the next person.
So it's not a cookie cutter program.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
No.
So tell me about, there are a number of programs under Gentle Heart. One of them is Elevate,
which
is ELEV and
the number 8. Yes.
How did that come about?
How did that come about? Because we like to elevate everything that we do,
All the gentle hearts. Elevate
on a very
from
simple
anger
level.
to gentleness.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yes.
Tell me about Elevate.
So Elevate is a 76-bed male-only facility, a mix of detox and short-term rehab. So it's generally a 28-day program.
And then you provide a bridge.
We provide a bridge to whether it be longer-term treatment. If someone is working, we definitely have relationships with outpatients. We also have relationships with other organizations that provide that sense of community, because what we see, the opposite of addiction is isolation, and the opposite is connection. So it's extremely important for individuals to have that sense of community once they leave us.
And you are right in the city of New York.
We are right in the city. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Do you do anything with families?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we definitely what's also extremely important is that families are an important aspect to individuals' addiction and recovery, and we definitely incorporate the families, all the time. We're clinical. We get on the phone with families, and really help out the entire family, family of origin unit, for sure.
How long have you been with Elevate?
I actually started March 16th, 2020.
Oh, okay.
Now that was the day of lockdown.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And,
wow, boy, you got some timing, Joe. I gotta tell you.
I know. Impeccable, right? And I hit the ground running. We really helped out a lot of individuals during the height of COVID. Also, obviously, now we're definitely seeing that there's a huge need in a lot of different communities.
What have you learned? What is the one thing that you've learned over the time you've been with Elevate and Gentle Heart?
That the one concept I learned, that there's, as I mentioned earlier, that it's not a one size fits all. we're the type of organization that, if something doesn't work, we'll let go of it, and any idea that will help out our patients and the communities we serve, nothing is off the table.
You had told me earlier that in your addiction, it got down to the point where your life got really small.
Yes.
How big is your life now?
It's like MasterCard. It's priceless. It's there's so much abundance in my life today. That's only due to being in recovery.
Mm. What do you say to someone who's out there right now who perhaps is where you were at 15 and a half years ago?
So one of the reasons why I work in this field is to provide hope and help for others suffering, and that there is a different way, a better way of life. What comes to mind is I was speaking to an individual about 2.5 years ago. I remember exactly where I was when I was speaking to this individual. Severe alcoholism, and he would call me every day, and I really believed like he wanted to come in. Every day that he called, he wanted to come in, but then he would fall asleep or we lost touch. And then I remember clearly, it was Friday. He's like, Joe, I need to come in today. I need to come in today. You don't get it. I was able to say, I get it. I get it. I've been where you are. And all of a sudden, he's like, really? And I shared with him in a general way. And all of a sudden, his whole demeanor changed on the phone. I heard it. And all of a sudden, he's like, oh, you do get it. You do get it. He's like, I will be there. And you know what? Saturday morning, he actually came in. Because that's the connection. It's one person helping out another.
With a gentle heart.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about urban recovery.
Sure. So Urban is a facility that's it's also about four years old, four years plus. The unique thing at Urban is that we take male and female patients. Obviously, they're separated by floor and by program. That is the unique thing. It's in the beautiful. It's 2 blocks off the the waterfront in Brooklyn. In Red Hook, it's a really nice neighborhood.
Oh, Red Hook is
there's
nice.
There's still like cobblestones on different streets, and some of my most favorite sunsets are from that pier down by Steve's Key Lime Pie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know it well, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. So
wow.
So that's the unique atmosphere at Urban. It also has a really, really nice rooftop deck and garden that patients could go up.
Serenity.
To. Yeah. Exactly.
Serenity.
Yes.
Joe, thank you very much, and thank you, Gus, as well, for talking about Gentle Hearts and the programs under Gentle Hearts.
Yes.
And it's been a great pleasure to meet you and have you here at the NAATP conference.
Yes, and as Gus mentioned, I'll just reiterate: if anyone needs help out there, whether it's your first time picking up or it's, we hope it's your last time, and we could definitely help you make that difference. Our number is 646-655-0031. Each facility has their own website. We are working on it's going to be gentlewithheart.com. The website should be up and running in, a little bit, in about a week's time.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, and I wish you well, one client at a time, one patient at a time.
One day at a time, yes.
And Gus would like to add something.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, I just wanted to say that at Gentle Heart Recovery, we're passionate about treating our patients, and that's what makes us special. And so everyone else will be treated special in our facilities. Thank you.
I not only hear that from you, I feel that from you. I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with 2 great guys, Gus and Joe from Gentle Hearts Recovery in New York City. By the way, I want to remind listeners of this podcast that if you would like to tell your story of recovery, regardless of the path you've chosen, as long as you've been in continuous recovery for a year or more, drop us a note, recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. Coming up next, iconic actress and a woman in long-term recovery, Ali McGraw, will share some reflections on recovery. That'll happen in just 30 seconds.
She has always been your baby. But when your daughter got into drugs and alcohol, she turned into a stranger. What do you do? Where do you turn? Contact Sundown M Ranch. Sundown's nationally recognized youth treatment program guides young people back to a life free of drugs and alcohol. All treatment is gender specific and directed by caring certified professionals in a safe environment. You can get your daughter back and get to know her again. Go to www.sundown.org to learn more.
And now, as promised, here is actress Ali McGraw.
Self-worth is not something I lacked for years, then suddenly gained, and now have forever. While it's true that I feel good about myself most of the time these days, I've learned not to take those feelings for granted. The reality is that sometimes my self-worth plummets. On occasion, it seems to disappear entirely, if only for a brief interval. When I'm sick, for example, even with something as minor as a head cold, I'm extremely vulnerable to my old ideas about myself. At other times, an onslaught of low self-worth can be triggered by a mistake on my part or someone's thoughtless remark. When I lapse into my old mindset and start attacking myself, there are specific restorative actions I can take. Although I can't control the onset of the attack, I can prevent it from escalating into full-scale self-destruction. Recognizing my negative thoughts for the falsehoods they are, I try to replace them with truth. I share my sense of unworthiness with close friends who remind me that it is part of an old pattern and offer support. I turn to God, asking Him to help me regain an accurate and honest perception of myself. Thought for today. When feelings of unworthiness temporarily return, I will not despair. I can and will be restored.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please share it with others via social media or simply tell someone about it. You can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. If you'd like to get in touch, our email is recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. Also, please hit the subscribe or follow button. It's free, and you'll be notified the next time we publish a podcast. Remember, if you know someone who's experiencing problems with alcohol or any other drug, here is a 24-hour national helpline that offers free information and confidential treatment referrals, and they have Spanish-speaking individuals available as well. 1-800-622-HELP. And we encourage you to check out findsupport.gov. That's one word, findsupport.gov. It's a brand new website designed for individuals, families, and friends, and has information including how to pay for treatment, including how to find low-cost and free treatment options. You'll find all this information at findsupport.gov. And please, join us next time for America's Voice for Recovery, Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. And another shout-out to our sponsoring organization, Sundown M Ranch, where recovery begins, sundown.org. I'm Neil Scott, reminding you to stay healthy, live in gratitude, and be kind to others. Remember, the bright side of addiction is recovery. Pass it on.